Hello everyone, this is Jeff Welch, and look how beautiful these mountain laurel are blooming right now. They're just absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorite flowers here from the homestead, and they grow wild, and you can see them behind me here. So I want to talk to you about, is prepping a waste of time? Is prepping a waste of time? That question used to be so comical to me. My question would be, is not prepping a waste of time? I think that's more of an appropriate question, don't you? So anyway, let's go through a synopsis here of basically what this video is going to be about today, very quickly. And it's going to be about the 6 core needs of why you would prep in the first place, or prepare for what's to come in the first place. Let's talk about those 6 core principles that we're going to be breaking down here. And it won't all be done in this video, but it'll be touched upon in this video. And again, I just love these mountain laurel that are in full bloom right now. And you can see this big mountain laurel blooming behind me. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's amazing, the symmetry and the geometry of nature and how beautiful it is and how God has done something special with the land, So anyway, the 6 core values, or the 6 core needs of prepping that you need to pay attention to. Let's go over those really quickly. Number 1, first aid and medicine. You need to always be prepared and have plenty of first aid and medicine stored away so that you have Band-Aids, you have antiseptics, you have other things in your cupboards. Some of those medicines can be herbal remedies that you trust in, and that you maybe have even prepared yourself, or you have friends that help you prepare those so that you can make it through any type of what I call minor ailments or things that you need to keep your health well. I'm a believer in preventative health instead of trying to fix the problem once it's there. So that goes a long way. So number 2, security. I hope you're writing these down. Security covers a whole array of different subjects in regards to prepping security. We won't go into that today to much of an extent, but we will mention that as number 2. Number 3, shelter. You need solid shelter. Shelter against the elements. Shelter in the wintertime when it's cold. Shelter in the summertime when it's hot. Shelter when there's a storm on its way. We have a storm on its way right now here on the Welch family homestead that could be hitting us within the next hour and a half. That's going to be potential thunderstorms and wind. In fact, I started the video in a different location a few moments ago, and it was so windy I had to move to a different location here in the forest near where my daughter is going to be building her home in the near future. And the reason for that is because the trees in the forest here kind of block the wind. My microphone was not doing very well in the open space that I started in a moment ago, so I had to move my location. Shelter against wind, rain, storms, cold, hot. You need shelter over your head to keep critters away, predators away. There are predators for humans as well. We know predators, when we talk about humans, sometimes predators are humans. So your shelter is a very important factor, not just against bears and other animals that could cause you bodily harm, but also humans. You need good shelter. Number 4, nutrition. You have good food. Now, one of the things that I believe that so many people in the prepping world miss out on is good quality food. Many of them don't address it in how can I provide myself with storage of good quality food that is non-toxic, doesn't have a lot of preservatives in it, or any preservatives in it. Most of them are filled with chemicals that you buy and that you prep with and that companies sell to you in reference to prepping or storing food away. Many people believe that you should store away at least 6 months to 2 years of food in case there's any kind of a catastrophe or a food shortage. And yes, over 1,900 food manufacturing facilities have been destroyed in some way over the last year. That's a lot here in the United States. Is it a coincidence? I'm not going to go into what we would call conspiracy or reality here today. I want to talk to you about facts, and the facts is food can definitely be an issue, and you need to be prepared with that more than anything else on your focus if you're talking about prepping. Prepping is not necessarily a term that we used growing up, but it's a term that is used very common today in preparing for anything that could be around the corner that you do not perceive that could cause a stress on your provisions or a stress on the things that you need to survive. And food is definitely one of those. Number 5, hydration. It's important to have a good quality water source. Whether you have any other type of liquid source or not, water is number 1 that you need to be 100% focused on. You need to stay hydrated. If you're living in an area where quality water, non-polluted water is rare, then I suggest you have a good source of bottled water stored up and prepared to sustain you and your family. You see, some people don't have as large a family as others. They don't have as many people to prepare for than others. But I will guarantee you that if things were to go rough and things get into an area of necessity and shortage, the neighbors, people down the road, sometimes people who are not necessarily the most honest people in the world are going to be looking for the people who are storing things and where their storage is. And it may actually be up for grabs against your will, and we call that theft. And you want to be careful with that so that you do not put yourself at risk of losing the things that you've prepared for your own well-being and your family's well-being. Your family may be larger than others. You need to store more than others. If your family is small, you don't have to store as much, but you need to prepare for a time period. Gauge that according to how long you feel like you need to prepare for. I would say at least 6 months of food shortage, food needs, and water needs. And your hydration is extremely important. Here on our farm, I have all the water that I need. So I'm very blessed with the fact that I have water coming out of the mountain up here on my property, and it flows through our property. We have hundreds of underground springs. When I searched out to buy a piece of property, this was one of my number 1 goals, is to have a good fresh water supply coming out of the ground on my property and no pollution going into that water, so that I would never, ever have to worry about water. Here on the East Coast, we have a lot of water compared to, say, the West Coast. The West Coast is dry, it's more desert. Here on the East Coast, we're more like a subtropical rainforest in climate. And we have the Appalachian Mountains. I am in the Appalachian Mountains, and I have plenty of water on our farm. In fact, I have even a lake with over 6 million gallons of water in my lake. So I have plenty of water for me, the animals, and even irrigation if need be. So, number 6, one of the items that you don't really hear much about is hygiene. Hygiene is important. It's important to your health. Even the Bible talks about cleanliness is next to godliness. You know, one of the things that we were taught growing up is to always smell clean and to be clean. Take your bath often. And the reason for that is because we were taught well. We were taught that cleanliness was next to godliness. Why? Because I do believe your health depends on it. Because if you do not stay healthy, you don't stay clean, you're increasing your risks of disease and other infections if your body is not clean. I'm one of those that is notorious for showering every day, whether I need it or not. And I'm also guilty in the summertime of jumping in the lake and swimming and getting that second or third bath a day, because I want to make sure that I have a clean body. A clean body is a very important factor. So when you're storing things away, you want to make sure you also store things away so that you can manage your hygiene during the times that you may not be able to travel, whatever the circumstances may be. We don't know what those circumstances could be around the corner, whether you'll be able to travel, whether you'll be able to get to a grocery store, whether you'll be able to get to a supply of what you need, or if there's any supply there to go get. Because we know that even if the trucking industry were to shut down and stop, that many people believe that within 3 to 5 days, the grocery stores and the supply chain will be completely strained and the shelves will be empty because no one will be able to get the supplies to the stores for you to purchase, and people will start hoarding immediately, and before you know it, within less than a week, if the supply chain is cut off, we're all in a mode of desperation. So, moving very quickly, I want to go through some details here. What is prepping? What is prepping? A prepper is someone who is preparing for what could possibly happen, whether it be a catastrophe, whether it be some type of a war situation that could happen on our soil that we did not maybe perceive. Any surprises that could happen that could shut down, like we said a moment ago, transportation, or it could shut down electricity, it could shut down your ability to travel, to go get supplies, or supplies diminish to the point to where there are no supplies to get. Prepping is all about preparing for those moments that you just don't know when they're going to happen. Are they going to happen? I don't believe it's are they going to happen or if they're going to happen. I think it's when is it going to happen. And with everything changing like it is right now in society and the world, not just here in the United States, our supply chain is not just based here in the United States. We saw this during the COVID season. We saw that much of our supply chain was coming from other countries. And when the strain of travel during COVID lockdown canceled that scenario out, we found that here in the United States that things that could normally get here from other countries within days now took months, not just weeks, months, sometimes not at all. I know that I'm in a business where we put products together and we do formulations and we have different ingredients coming from different countries. And we had barrels and barrels of curcumin, a curcumin ingredient that was going into one of our products that we had produced in India, which is the #1 country in the world for producing quality curcumin. And we had it completed, we had it done. It was sitting in a warehouse at an airport in India right at the beginning of 2020. And it sat there for months. We could not get that product out of India into the United States because of the quarantine scenario that was taking place in India. We could not get it out of the warehouse into a jet to fly to the United States, to our manufacturer in Texas. This is a normal scenario that we dealt with during the COVID lockdowns. Now, you know, if that can happen during the lockdowns, that taught every one of you that are listening to me right now, that just a short-term lockdown can affect everyone. We also seen a supply chain of not just raw ingredients that were closed down, but we also seen bottles, caps, containers, labels, everything you can imagine. The supply chain was strained. So when things get tough, the supply chain is affected, and we need to prepare for that. So prepping, is it a waste of time? My question to you, is prepping a waste of time? My response to that is not prepping a waste of valuable time? And when you do need it, it's not there if you didn't prep. So now I grew up on a farm, and because of that, we didn't call it prepping, we just called it being prepared. When you grew up on a farm and you supply almost everything you need, which we did, we had everything that we needed from the farm, whether it be meat or vegetables, whatever it may be, came from the farm. Firewood came from the farm. Just like I have a forest here, if I need firewood, I will never run out of firewood, never run out of timber. I'll never run out of places to walk. But when it comes to food, we grew everything that we ate except for, let's say we may have had to go to the grocery store to pick up certain things that we did not grow, that were easily accessed at the grocery store, such as spices and say salt, sugar, different things like that my mother would use in the kitchen that we bought that did not come from the farm. Now, that was rare, it wasn't a lot. Most everything came from the farm. We had a lot of chickens on the farm, over 100,000. We had a lot of cattle. We had pigs. We had fruit trees. We had berries. We had vegetables. We had everything that you could even imagine coming from our farm, and we were blessed. If we needed plums, we go to the plum trees. We need apples, we go to the apple trees. And when seasons were in, we also knew how to prepare those vegetables or can things or dry things out to preserve them without chemicals so that they would last us until the next season. My grandfather had a smokehouse behind his house where he smoked meat. We had constantly trays and trays and trays. We call them screens because we used large screens that we laid out slices of apples where we'd lay them on the hot tin roof and let them dry out. And then once they were dry, we could store those apples. Our grandmother would make some of the best apple tarts and apple pies you could ever imagine from those apples or pears that we would collect from the trees. Now, today, in the world we're in right now, we're in a world of convenience where everyone, if you need anything at all, you just go to the store and you buy it. It has an expiration date because no one even thinks about anything that they buy having to last more than a month. And the reason that many things last longer than 1 or 2 weeks in a store after they've been 2 or 3 weeks getting to the store is because they're filled with chemicals, preservatives that are not good for you. Health-wise, my suggestion to you, whether you prep or not, do everything you possibly can to shift your diet to things that you can manage to grow yourself, or you have friends that grow that you can support in your local neighborhoods. Develop those communities, those networks of people who can help you sustain your well-being. Anyway, a long story short, it is worth it. It's worth prepping. It's worth doing everything you possibly can. I call it smart math because it adds up. It adds up because it creates the security that you need to be able to survive no matter what the scenario is. Now, we see the Amish, we see the Mennonites, we see certain religious groups, even the LDS, that have taught their people to sustain and to store foods away. And some people have labeled these people as psychotic nuts because of the way that they have lived. When in today's time, many of us respect them instead of talk negative about them. We don't judge them as harshly as we used to because we thought, well, they're just not moving up in the world. They're not going into the more modernization of the society that we live in. They need to aggress. They need to progress. When in reality now, all of us, if we're smart, we'll realize that just because we're moving fast with technology and we're moving fast with invention, we're moving fast with our abilities to formulate with chemicals and everything else that we may want to do to our crops and our animals, does not necessarily mean it is in the best interest of your health and your well-being and your future. Just because something is easier and that you can go to a store and push a button and everything be okay doesn't mean that it's better. In fact, during COVID, we've also seen a lot of people take up hobbies. And many of those hobbies have had to do with baking, cooking, learning how to do things within the home. When everyone was locked down and they couldn't leave the home, they realized that the home at the first part of lockdown, they may have felt a little bit like they were in bondage, like they just couldn't go anywhere. But after a short period of time, I noticed that people were excited about being at home with their children, with their family, cooking and doing things that they had not done in many years, playing games with their children and their family, doing whatever they used to talk about when they were kids or their parents would talk about. And they realized, wow, we were missing something with the way of our lifestyle in our society in the direction that we were moving. And we were missing out on the good things in life that some people might look at as simple. But in reality, it was much more than that. It was a way of life that is sustainable. Again, it's smart math. It adds up and it all falls into place very nicely. Join me on my next video as I talk about why I switched from being someone who would probably laugh inside at someone who would call themselves a prepper. And now I don't laugh anymore. God bless you from the Welch Family Homestead. I have a dog that's going nuts here, and I have to go take care of him. He's a pup, and he has more energy than a lightning bolt. So thank you for joining me here. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our channel here, please do. It's free. There's no cost to subscribe to a YouTube channel. You just need a YouTube account. And if you do, and you're watching this video, click that like button, but also subscribe and hit that bell so that you see all my future videos as well. God bless you from the Welch Family Homestead. This is Jeff Welch. I really appreciate you joining me today on this excerpt about, is prepping a waste of time?